Thank you for joining me here today. My presentation is about heart. So, of course, that means I always say, take heart, which is healing from emotion, anger, and relational trauma. This is actually the name of a support group that I facilitate and brings together anger management and relational trauma. These groups started in 2021 and continue to transform as I and my colleagues, I'm not the only one, and the participants learn from each other and explore information from various sources. It would be presumptuous to expect to be healed from heart in the time we have today. Certainly this is actually, as we've heard elsewhere, really a lifelong process. I can only touch upon the elements that are discussed in a group setting, where we explore over either 4, 6, 8 sessions of 75 minutes each. So you understand 30 minutes is like that. My experiences as a former cult member, along with other relational traumatic experience that's within my family and with business, as well as being a mental health professional, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, has led me to bring people together that on the surface have very different experiences, but contain a common thread: relational trauma. Integrating those with group experiences, be it destructive cult or extreme religious community, those confronting individuals, be it a partner, family, member, friend, or professional, and experiences within a business or other setting, allows everyone to gain a wider perspective, feel less isolated, and realize that what is being explored here is more prevalent than we comprehend. Not only is it in religion, individual relationships, but also pervasive in politics. So one of my sources is The Cult of Trump by Stephen Hassan, who people know, or what have you. Also, I come from New York, and also Long Island, where we have a representative who has been the epitome showing this. And, what can we do? My journey started over 48 years ago in experiencing coercive control and the healing process, which includes understanding relational trauma and its elements, using strategies and techniques toward greater emotional regulation and anger management, as well as finding ways to release toxicity, forgive oneself and others, and express gratitude. Grief and loss is also a part, but I'll not be able to address all of this today, obviously. In a recent group, the people that came were actually someone who was in a previous anger management group and wants to gain support from this group. Someone who had cult experience, actually her father, so we all know relational trauma was on many levels. Another woman was raised by a narcissist, sometimes witness a bit of my own gaslighting habits. She wants to learn and have her first time group counseling experience and the like. So people came from a variety of backgrounds. Okay, so what I want to talk about initially is, I guess, the idea of part of relational trauma. We talk about traumatic narcissism, and that term came from another book called Traumatic Narcissism and Recovery by Daniel Shaw, also a former cult member. And also we use Opening Our Minds by John Attic. Okay, these are also good books. I'm not going to get into their material either, especially Daniel talking about shame in particular, and John mentioning the idea of we're talking about predators. Anyway, symptoms of narcissism. Basically, you might have heard this elsewhere, of course. Initially, you talk about a grandiose sense of how important they are. They feel themselves superior and exaggerate their own success. They have a lot of fantasies about power, control, success, or their ideal love. They believe they're special and unique, and only very successful people or highly important people deserve to talk to them. I think people have understood that or had that. They want and need admiration from the people around them. They have unrealistic expectations of the things they do, and because they are so perfect, they have high expectations of themselves and what they do. They take advantage of others to become better from it themselves. There's one part that's very important, and that is lack of empathy. They fail to recognize the feelings and emotions of others. They are arrogant against others, they're envious of others, or believe others are envious of them. So, actually, translated, they should make their own life miserable, or they're making other lives miserable. That, okay? Very good. So, I'm going to try to also now, get a little group participation on a couple of questions, but we can't go into it like I normally do. So I just want a couple of ideas of, anybody have any first thoughts that come to mind when you think of gaslighting? Yes?
That everybody's being gaslit 100% of the time, according to language today.
Whoa. That's a lot to take in. Yes?
Someone who knows you enough to trigger you and then blame you for being triggered.
Good. Okay, very good. So let's, yes.
Before gaslighting became, I think, such a part of like our lexicon, I feel like we used to call it crazy making.
Okay, very good. Well, actually, does anyone know where the term gaslighting came from? Movie, right. Actually, a movie in 1944, and there were a couple of others, famous. Ingrid Bergman, won an Oscar for it. Very good, and at times in the group that, that I facilitate, we look at some of those clips, but we don't have time today, unfortunately. It was actually based on, the play was in 1938. Also, I guess certainly one of the other things about gaslighting in that movie, so what, yeah, it's a movie, but what happened in the movie that was so, yes?
She would do things. She was secluded in the house, and he would do things to make her think that there were people up in the attic, and then to convince her that she was crazy when she said the lights went down and lights went up.
Right.
And, yeah, he just did things around the house to make her think that she was losing her mind.
Well, actually, he was up there doing it. He was doing that. That's where it all came from. Okay. So, myth one, gaslighting only occurs in romantic relationships. I guess certainly that's something we all know, with in terms of the, everybody here. Obviously, it can happen with a family member, friends, coworker, boss, or here it says even in a group setting, which we obviously we know. Gaslighting only happens to women. As in the movie, no. I mean, there's some guys here, right? Okay, good. Here we go back to subclass of narcissistic personality disorder, and very quickly just talk about overt, covert, antagonistic, communal, and malignant. These are various divisions in terms of that. So we don't have time to go into each one individually. Okay, common phrases that indicate gaslighting. Here we go, right? Has anybody heard any of these? Right? Definitely. So that's, you know, we don't have to read them all. Gaslighting cycle, very important. We have idealization, devaluation, and discarding. So here we go with the idealization stage, also known it's as the appreciation stage. The infatuation can look like love, but is not love. And they talk about love bombing. Now, I don't know, I had love bombing a little over 48 years ago when I was in a group called the Unification Church, also known as the Moonies. And actually, they used that term. And they really invented it. Right, exactly. Oh, you bomb with love. Exactly. But also there was something in terms of love bombing. Personally, after a week of being there, and I was going to leave, presumably, there was a big event. It was a Sunday, and the person who was there, who was the kind of demigod, or whatever, her name was Oni back in, Steve knows, you know, say actually you had 100 people like this, right? And she said, she talked for hours or whatever. And then you had to stand, everybody had to stand or whatever. And she walked by me and she turned around and then she came up to me, shook my hand and walked out. I was the only person in the room that she did that to. Do you know how that made me feel? Okay, I didn't leave. Okay, at that time. Okay. Devaluation stage, also known as the depreciation stage. Okay. Narcissist statement of valuing you shift. Okay. Narcissist will start dropping subtle hints. You've done something wrong. And of course, who here is perfect, right? You always do something wrong. And so that happens over time. The discarding stage is the narcissist might decide that they're done with you, that you have no further use for them. Well, in this case, that might be true. However, of course, in the group context, they find other ways of certainly keeping you in. As long as you make money for you, but there are people, and I know I did work with one family in Germany where she was kicked out because she couldn't function. She ended up being hospitalized, unfortunately. The gaslighting effects: disbelief, defense, depression. Okay? This is, initially you brush it off because you want to be there, you want to believe. You know, this happens, that happens, and lo and behold, you know, you go deeper. After a few more instances, you start to defend them, rationalize the behavior. Now, don't forget, this is not simply about cults. This is about any individual relationship as well. And eventually, you accept their version of reality to avoid conflict. Talk about cognitive dissonance. Okay, but this denial of reality drains your energy, disconnecting you from yourself and leaving you feel helpless. Thank you. Okay, long-term effects. I'm going to go through this more quickly, but here you have, you know, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and there's something else, post-betrayal syndrome, which I want to introduce. Unfortunately, you know, we can't go further, but betrayal trauma is unique in that it involves the intense feelings of shame associated with the act of being abused or violated. Excuse me now, I have to move here, and wait, where'd it go? Oh. Hold on a second, sorry, here we go. Okay, so we don't have a lot of time, we have under 15 minutes. So I do have to go on, and unfortunately I cannot talk about why people gaslight others or a number of other slides. Anyway, whoa, what happened? Did I not press it? Is it on? No. Oh, thank you. Sorry. I'm a little technically challenged, excuse me. Okay, anyway, of course, now we go into anger management, because obviously coming out of such an environment, or even obviously you might feel it within, but it's suppressed, this is very important to deal with your feelings, a lot of it dealing with anger. What is anger? Most of us know what it is, but basically it's a feeling or emotion that ranges from mild irritation to intense fury. Many people often confuse anger with aggression. Aggression is behavior that is intended to cause harm or injury to another person or damage to property. Hostility, on the other hand, refers to a set of attitudes and judgments that motivate aggressive behaviors. So anger is emotion, aggression, behavior, hostility, attitude. Okay? When does it become a problem? When it is felt too intensely, too frequently, or expressed inappropriately. What are some ways anger may be affecting you physically? Any thoughts about that? One or two? Yes? Feeling hot? Yes. What other, yes? Overeat? Yes. It is generally negative, you know, experience. What? Heart rate. People, yes, we get into that in terms of actually, you know, if you have consistent anger, then it's going to affect you negatively, studies have shown, you know, in many physical ways. What? Panic attack, yes, thank you. Okay. Payoffs and consequences. The inappropriate expression of anger initially has apparent payoffs, releasing tension. That's what, you know, afterwards you feel kind of relaxed, but then what happens? It comes back, it's like a boomerang effect, and it gets worse. In the long term, however, these payoffs lead to negative consequences. That's why they are called apparent payoffs. The long-term negative consequences far outweigh the short-term gains. What are some payoffs to using anger that you are familiar with? What are negative consequences that you have experienced as a result of expressing your anger inappropriately? Okay, these are some things that we would certainly get into. Anger control plan. So what we talk about here is The anger control plan refers to a list of strategies you will identify to manage and control your anger. Okay? There's immediate strategies, including timeouts, deep breathing, thought stopping, which may be very triggering to some of you, I understand, because, you know, you're taught to think that way in the cult, but we're talking about the negative thoughts, not the ones they call the negative thoughts. Okay, examples of preventive strategies: developing an exercise program and changing irrational beliefs. I just want to mention right now, when 3:30 hits, I will still be here. Luckily, no one else will be coming in. We can continue discussion-wise. Okay, so here are various possibilities. Take a time out, talk to a friend. There's something called a conflict resolution model, exercise, attend 12-step meetings as long as they're not culty, explore primary feelings beneath the anger. A lot of times, anger covers other or masks other emotions. And that's why it's also called a secondary emotion. So if you don't know why you're angry or what triggers it, you know, then it's going to be very difficult to handle it. Again, this is a discussion, you know, that we could have, I guess, in 10 minutes or whenever I have. Anger coping thoughts. Okay. And certainly we do have a whole list of them. I need to stop thinking these thoughts. I will only get into trouble if I keep thinking this way, or don't buy into this situation, or don't go there. So rather than dispute your thoughts and beliefs, the goal is to stop your current pattern of angry thoughts before they lead to an escalation of anger and a loss of control. Excuse me for going fast. Cognitive distortions. What is a cognitive distortion? Here are some thoughts: magnification and minimization, overgeneralization, magical thinking, personalization, jumping to conclusions, emotional reasoning, disqualifying the positive, should statements, all or nothing thinking. I guess we all know about that. Anyway, these are things that are important to take a step back and look at for ourselves. Conflict resolution models, and these are 5 strategies representing different approaches to managing conflict. I'm not going to read them, but just I wanted to get to here. Here we go. We have, these are general coping thoughts. I do want to, for anyone might be interested. Here we go. One kind of in the middle: relax and let go. There's no need to get my knickers in a twist. Okay, that's thrown in there. This, by the way, is from the Anger Control Handbook, and also another book that we use, reference, is When Anger Hurts by Matthew McKay and Peter Rogers. Some of the other information is, I guess, Gaslighting and Narcissistic Abuse Recovery by Don Barlow, and the Gaslighting Recovery Journal, which we use in the groups to really go into, being able to discuss more in depth. And that's by Alisa Stamps. The other book, and I did mention in terms of Stephen Hassan and the Cult of Trump, is also something that probably nobody really knows about. The American Revolution of 1800, how Jefferson rescued democracy from tyranny and faction. And so that's an important reference. And in addition, we also want to mention the, I guess there are some ideas for forgiveness as well, which we touch upon. And one is called No Room for Vengeance, Injustice, and Healing by Victoria Ruffolo and Robert Goldman. And also this book called The Gift of Forgiveness, which is by Catherine Schwarzenegger Pratt, inspiring stories from those who have overcome the unforgivable. Because healing does not really happen without forgiveness and gratitude. However, I must say that another option as well, and I'm just going to read something about that. Let's see here. Sorry. Here we go. It's called, and some of you are certainly not at the point, and certainly forgiveness is not something that you have to do in terms of being forcing, because then it's really not forgiveness. But instead, if you can't forgive them, then maybe you can release them. Consider replacing the word forgive with the word release. In other words, instead of forgiving people, you're releasing them. You're releasing them from your life so that you no longer have a hold on you. Simply change the question from how do I forgive them to how do I release them, and then consider yourself. Love yourself, value yourself, and know that you have the power to change the dynamics of any situation. This is by Anita Morjani, which a lot of things are on YouTube. There are gratitude apps. There's a lot of information, about all of this. I do want to make mention before the streaming goes off about I do have a flyer for the next group through Zoom, which is, again, the heart group, and certainly anyone who is interested can reach me at 516-547-4318 or paul.engel@flushingjcc.net, or on the websites flushingjcc.net or our sister agency, Family Kind, because this is something that started actually not because of ICSA or cult members, but actually through Family Kind, which works with families going through divorce. And initially, we started with the anger management. Some people were mandated, of course, but in actuality, even in the first session with the anger management, the relational trauma rose its head, and so then I started another group just with relational trauma. And then what came into that? Anger management. So if you can't fight them, join them. It's a different twist on it. But in any case, I don't know if the streaming has stopped. 1 minute? Okay, well, please feel free to, contact me for any other questions and information. Yes? Oh, well, I just mentioned that there, but I said and we can continue. We're fortunate that anybody who doesn't want to break right now, we can continue for a bit. I'll be here. Is 516-547-4318. That's right here. Or if you prefer to email me for this program, it's Paul, P-A-U-L, dot Engel, E-N-G-E-L, at flushingjcc.net.